for 2017 will be presented. And of course, many people will be keen on listening to what the Minister of Finance would have to say this morning. The Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister himself, Dr. Keith Mitchell. And in talking to some of the people already, they're hoping that there'll be no taxes and that they could be granted some relief, particularly that we're getting into the final phase of the homegrown program. And of course, some will be looking forward to the projects, especially the infrastructure project that was mentioned in the throne speech, among other things. The Prime Minister, of course, who's Minister of Finance, like I said earlier on, would of course be dealing with the fiscal performance, and he's expected to tell Parliament and the nation that fiscal performance in 2016 continued on a strong path as the preceding 2 years. We're witnessing now the entrance into the chamber, led by the Sergeant at Arms, then the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and other members of the staff at Parliament here at the Trade Centre. The mace will be laid, and that will signal the proceedings of the House will be that the House is sitting. While we hear the Speaker inviting everyone to join in prayer, he bows to the left and to the right, saluting members of the House of Representatives who are occupying both the left and right.
Guide, we beseech thee, Almighty God, members of this House, that they may wisely deliberate for the good of the country and for the glory of thy holy name. Join with me as we say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pray, be seated. This honorable House is now in session.
The House is now in session, with the mace being placed in the top position. While we hear from the Speaker. It is a sitting where, of course, the...
Item number 3, oath of allegiance or affirmation of a new member.
To take care of government business.
Item number 4, confirmation of minutes.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Grenada Trade Center on Friday, the 11th November 2016 be taken as read.
Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceeding of the House of Representatives held at Grenada Trade Center on Friday, 11th November be taken as read. Those who are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the said minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Grenada Trade Center on Friday, 11th November 2016 be confirmed.
Honorable members, the question is that the said minutes be confirmed. Those of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Item number 5, messages from the Governor General. Item number 6, announcements by Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, could something be done about the lighting?
That is meant to be just what it is.
Honorable members of this honorable House, I welcome you to the fifth session of the of the ninth Parliament. I thank you for your cooperation during the past sessions of this honorable House of Representatives. I wish you, for this fifth session, good health and the wisdom and fortitude you need to continue to do the work demanded of you by the constituencies you represent and the nation as a whole. May the spirit of wisdom guide your deliberations. Thank you.
Item number 7, presentation of petitions. Item number 8, presentation of papers and reports from select committees.
The Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the following papers be laid on the table. 1, the Ombudsman Plan 2017. 2, Office of the Integrity Commission Budget 2017. 3, Grenada Council for Technical and Vocational Education and Training, National Training Agency 2015 Annual Report. 4, the Annual Report, Financial Statements, and Audit Report thereon of Grenada Ports Authority for the year ended 31st December 2015. 5, Annual Reports and Financial Statements of the T.A. Marisho Community College for the year ended 31st December 2015. 6, Supplementary Estimates, Capital Expenditure for the fiscal year 2016. 7, Minutes of the proceedings of a meeting of the Standing Committee on Finance held at the Grenada Trade Center on Friday, 2nd December 2016. 8, Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure 2017. 9, Statutory Rules and Orders number 52 of 2016. And 10, Statutory Rules and Orders number 58 of 2016.
His reports and papers from Select Committee are laid at the table.
Item number 9, unopposed private business. Item number 10, questions. Item number 11, urgent questions under the provisions of Standing Order number 21, notice of questions. Item number 12, statements by ministers. Item number 13, personal explanations. Item number 14, motions.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name, which reads, whereas debate on the gracious address delivered by the Governor General on the occasion of the ceremonial state opening of the 5th session of the 9th Parliament on Friday, 2nd December 2016, was deferred to a date to be fixed. Be it resolved that the said address be now debated by the House on a date to be further fixed.
Honorable members, the question is that the debate on the gracious address by the Governor General be deferred to a date to be fixed. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Representative for St. George Northwest and Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas it is necessary to provide for the state of Grenada for the year 2017 by means of an appropriation act, be it resolved that the estimates of expenditure for the year 2017 be approved.
Honorable members, the question is that the estimate of revenue and expenditure for the year 2017 be approved. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, as this is a money motion, I wish to signal to this honorable House that I have the consent of the Governor General to proceed. Mr. Speaker, working together, we have returned our nation to a place of stability and hope. Without our collective efforts, the situation today would be unthinkable. I am drawn, Mr. Speaker, to the Holy Scriptures in Corinthians 2, chapter 2, verses 14, that declares, "But thanks be to God who always leads us in triumph in Christ." We are thankful, Mr. Speaker, to the Almighty God for having guided us safely through the difficulties of the past few years and for the successes that we have been able to achieve as a nation. We are thankful, Mr. Speaker, to all our citizens for their sacrifices and resilience, through which Grenada is now back on its feet. We are thankful also, Mr. Speaker, for our social partners and the members of the Homegrown Program Monitoring Committee. We are thankful also for our developmental partners. Mr. Speaker, the magnitude of our successes can only be truly appreciated by recalling from whence we came. Many would recall, and many would like us to forget, or not even mention the dramatic turnaround in our economic fortunes. But the two periods, 2009 to 2012, and 2013 to 2016, are in stark contrast. From 2009 to 2012, the dire reality was a government unable to pay salaries of public servants on time, mounting unpaid claims in excess of $110 million and counting, rising deficits and debts, an economy in free fall, negative growth, zero business and investor confidence, weak and ineffective leadership. Today, Mr. Speaker, our economy is stronger and more robust. Grenada has emerged as one of the most vibrant economies in the Eastern Caribbean Union, with rates of growth averaging over 5%, more than double the ECC Union average. Unemployment, Mr. Speaker, has fallen from over 40% when we assumed office to 32.2% at the end of 2013 and 28.6% now in 2016, with over 3,203 net jobs created. Mr. Speaker, while this is extremely positive development, our government is not at all satisfied with this rate of decline in unemployment. Accordingly, a major focus of this budget will be job creation. The primary balance moved, Mr. Speaker, from a deficit position of 3.9% of GDP in 2013 to a surplus of 5.1% in 2016 and 9% turnaround in just 3 years, Mr. Speaker. An astonishing feat, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have dug ourselves of a deep, dark hole, and we are now in a position to journey into 2017 and beyond with broad-based, inclusive, and job-rich growth. Therefore, in charting the way forward, Mr. Speaker, we held wide-ranging consultation with stakeholders, including farmers, the business community, trade unions, civil society, on the priorities that they should be addressing, we should be addressing in the 2017 budget. Their key messages were protect the gains of the program. That's what they said. And spread the benefits more broadly. For this reason, Mr. Speaker, the theme chosen for the 2017 budget is, and I quote, working together to build our successes for a better country, unquote. This theme, Mr. Speaker, recognizes the strong macroeconomic foundation built through the collective sacrifices and patriotism of our people. Furthermore, it captures the necessity to continue working together to protect our hard-earned gains. Mr. Speaker, we are indeed proud of our many achievements. However, much work lies ahead. In this regard, we must continue to face the task of securing our future with bold and decisive leadership, a quality we have so far aptly demonstrated in the turnaround of the Grenadian economy. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to regional and international developments. International and regional economic developments. Recent performances also, Mr. Speaker, of the global economy, together with CARICOM, the region, and the Eastern Caribbean, will be given. Mr. Speaker, the IMF most recent World Economic Outlook indicates that the global economy remains very challenged, with growth projected at 3.1% in 2016 and 3.2% in 2017. At the level of the ECCU, growth is projected at 2.6% this year and 2.8% next year. Notwithstanding this, Mr. Speaker, our government, for its part, will continue to implement policies and programs that mitigate the impact of potential negative external influences on our economy and on our people. As a consequence, Grenada's performance in 2017 and over the medium term is expected to be significantly stronger than the average for the ECCU. Mr. Speaker, as is now customary, my statement today is a shortened version of the full statement which will be circulated at the conclusion of my presentation. Details on the performance of the global economy, the CARICOM and ECCU are contained in a full statement in that document. Update on BICO and CLICO situation. Mr. Speaker, this situation remains a major concern for our government. We are especially mindful of the hardships being experienced by our retirees, for example, our dock workers and others who have suffered tremendously, to the age and decline in health. In the case of CLICO, the matter is still before our courts in Barbados. In the case of BICO, policyholders can expect an additional payout in the next year after the Bahamas passes the requisite plan of arrangement legislation. It may be recalled, Mr. Speaker, that Grenada was the first to pass this law. We'll continue to work with regional governments on this very important issue. An update on the Grenadian economy and our homegrown program. And also economic performance. Mr. Speaker, the Grenadian economy is on track to grow for the 4th consecutive year since 2013. What a difference that collective leadership makes and unified leadership makes. In 2014 and 2015, the Grenadian economy recorded the strongest growth, Mr. Speaker, in the ECCU, growing by 7.3% and 6.2% respectively. Growth at least 3.4% is anticipated this year, driven by construction and tourism and related activities. Although this growth is slower than the previous 2 years, Grenada will once again outperform the ECCU average of 2.6% in 2016. For 2017, all economies projected to grow in real terms by at least 3%. This growth rate, Mr. Speaker, is a very conservative estimate as we have done before, historically. Growth next year will be driven by activity in a wide cross-section of sectors, including agriculture, tourism, construction, and education. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, the benefits of the projected economic expansion are expected to be more broadly felt. Fiscal performances, Mr. Speaker, in 2016. Government's fiscal position continued to show strong improvement, with government on track to achieve an underlying primary surplus, and that is total revenue and grants minus total non-interest expenditure of 5.1% of GDP as against a target of 3.5% of GDP. We have outperformed ourselves. This overperformance is due mainly to robust performance in revenue, driven by increased economic growth and underpinned by continuous improvement in both the administration and collection of taxes, strict budgetary controls to reduce wastage, and increase efficiency of government spending were also partly responsible. By the end of the fiscal year, the following results relative to the approved budget must be noted. Current revenues, Mr. Speaker, of $641.2 million as compared to a target at the budget time of $574.6 million. Grants of $94.6 million compared to a target of $201.6 million. Current expenditure of $463.1 million compared to a target of $481.2 million. Capital spending of $219.3 million compared to a target of $294.7 million. Mr. Speaker, we must give credit to most people, but particularly to major revenue collection agencies, the Inland Revenue Department and the Customs and Excise Division. Mr. Speaker, for the last 35 months, both IRD and Customs have consistently met or exceeded their targets. For this year, the Customs and Excise Division, and that's conservative collections, I expect it to reach $306.1 million compared to a budget total of $281.8 million, an overperformance of $24.3 million. The Inland Revenue is projected to collect $305.8 million compared to a budget of $266.7 million, an overperformance, Mr. Speaker, of $39.1 million. I therefore wish, Mr. Speaker, to applaud the leadership and staff of the Customs and Excise Division and the Inland Revenue Division for the excellent achievement this year. Update on our homegrown program. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that the IMF Board of Directors has approved the 5th review of our reform program, which will see the disbursement of US $2.7 million by the 22nd of December, 2016. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the Board of the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, met yesterday and approved $10 million in budgetary support for Grenada. The World Bank Board is expected to meet next Friday, December 16, to consider the approval of $9.4 million in budgetary support for Grenada. Mr. Speaker, it means Grenada stands to receive $60 million in additional budgetary support before the end of this year or in early January 2017, based on our strong performance of our homegrown reform program. Mr. Speaker, Grenada has already received $192.9 million in direct financial support since the start of the program in 2014, some of which are grants or monies we do not require to pay back. The 6th and final review, Mr. Speaker, of the homegrown program will be completed around June 2017. For 2017, we expect an additional disbursements from the International Monetary Fund and the European Union to the tune of $28 million. Update on the debt restructuring program, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that we continue to make steady progress in regularizing relations with all our creditors. On account of our debt restructuring program, Grenada has received a stock reduction so far of $200.3 million at the end of September 2016. A further $158.3 million is expected on successful completion of the homegrown program in 2017. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the cost savings in terms of debt service payments is calculated at $481.3 million. Tremendous savings, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our wisdom, our courage, and sacrifice to implement the structural adjustment program means we will not have to pay back over $839.9 million, Mr. Speaker. Over time, these funds will be used to invest in our people's health, those who want to see better health care, education, and other services. Mr. Speaker, Grenada is well on its way to restoring full credit worthiness, the real credit worthiness, Mr. Speaker. We place on record our sincere appreciation to all our creditors for debt relief provided. More details on the success of the debt restructuring exercise can be found in Annex 13 of this statement. Building on our successes, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that we have come a very, very long way, Mr. Speaker. From the brink of a total meltdown, we now have a solid economic foundation to build on. We are now better, Mr. Speaker, better prepared to meet our financial commitments on a timely basis, including to the private sector, to ensure that their businesses remain open. We have also, Mr. Speaker, matured as a country. Mr. Speaker, by having our first referendum on our Constitution over 40 years, this shows maturity. This is a historic and significant achievement for our nation, because it means today, Mr. Speaker, we are closer than we have ever been to having a constitution that better reflects the realities of our time. We remain resolute, Mr. Speaker, in our commitment to constitutional reform. I therefore take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to thank the Advisory Review Committee under the leadership of Dr. Francis Alexis for boldly and patriotically answering the call to take us through a referendum. I also thank the citizens for their efforts toward this noteworthy endeavor. Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that we work together to protect the gains this nation has achieved. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, our focus in 2017 will be concentrated on two main pillars. One, implementing the remaining structural reforms to boost growth and competitiveness. Two, undertaking critical investment to facilitate private sector and job creation. Specifically, in education and human resource development, we have to meet the demands of the job market in agriculture, agro-processing, fisheries, and our marine environment, now popularly referred to as the blue economy. to boost domestic production and exports. In healthcare delivery, specifically in institutional strengthening, health infrastructure and service delivery, key areas. In youth and sports development, to make a bigger dent in our youth unemployment situation. In tourism and related services, to develop a world-class destination. In housing, to address the huge unmet demands for low-cost housing. In energy development, to support our long-term energy needs. In ICT development, to create new job opportunities and support public sector delivery. In infrastructure and other cross-cutting areas, to boost productivity and create opportunities for all Grenadians. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the estimates of revenue and expenditure and the specific areas of intervention for 2017. Estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2017. Mr. Speaker, budget and finance in summary. The 2017 budget is consistent, Mr. Speaker, with our long-term objectives of fiscal discipline and high, sustained, job-rich and inclusive growth. It seeks to build on the successes of the previous 4 years. In this regard, the 2017 estimate of expenditure provide for a total expenditure, including amortization, of 1 billion, a real billion, Mr. Speaker, 100,578,144 $44. Real money, Mr. Speaker. The overall budget, Mr. Speaker, is summarized as follows. Recurrent expenditure of $657.2 million. $599.0 million in capital expenditure. Sorry, in recurrent expenditure. Capital expenditure, sorry. $154.3 million in capital expenditure. The current surplus, Mr. Speaker, is $58.3 million. The primary surplus after grants of $141.9 million. Principal repayments, amortization of $347.2 million. The overall surplus, Mr. Speaker, after grants of $55.8 million. The 10 largest allocations by vote are as follows. 1, the debt, $433.4 million, 39.4% of total expenditure. 2, the Ministry of Education, Human Resource and the Environment, $104 million, 9.5% of total expenditure. 3, the Ministry of Finance and Energy, $80.1 million, 7.3% of total expenditure. The Ministry of Health, Social Security and International Business, $79.9 million, 7.3% of total expenditure. The Ministry of Communication, Works, Physical Development, Public Utilities, ICT, and Community Development, $60.0 million, 5.5% of total expenditure. Pensions and gratuities of $53.6 million, 4.9% of expenditure. Police, total expenditure, Mrs. Speaker, of $4.3 million. Social development and housing of $39.4 million, 3.6% of total expenditure. The Ministry of Youth and Sports of $34.3 million, 3.1% of total expenditure. The Ministry of Economic Development, Trade and Planning, $26.9 million, 2.4% of total expenditure. More details, Mr. Speaker, on the 2017 budget allocations are available in Annex 8 of this document. Investment in human and social development, education and human resource development. Mr. Speaker, our government remains committed to transforming our economy through investment in education. The major successes in 2016 outlined in the written document of the statement, but highlights include the following: the integration of ICT in education system, which has progressed slowly but surely; the completion and rehabilitation of several schools, such as the Woburn Methodist, Bonnet Government, the Anglican High School, the St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, the Crowshoe RC, St. Mark's Secondary, and the Victoria Day and Daycare and Library, Mr. Speaker. 231 new scholarships were awarded at an estimated cost of $44.8 million. Mr. Speaker, government secured funding from the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, to the tune of $40 million for the Grenada Education Enhancement and Development Project. Mr. Speaker, the key areas of focus in 2017 will be schools infrastructure, and under phase 1 of the Grenada Education Enhancement Project, several schools will receive refurbishment and upgrades in 2017. These include the St. Joseph Convent in St. George's, Grenada Seventh-day Adventist Comprehensive School in St. Patrick's, the J.W. Fletcher Catholic Secondary School in St. George's, Presentation Brothers College in St. George's, the St. Joseph Convent in St. Andrews. And in phase 2 of this project, we'll see the building of the following schools: the St. David's Secondary School, the Grenada Christian Academy, the St. Andrew's Anglican Primary School, and under the OPEC Fund for International Development and the Basic Needs Trust Fund, BNTF, the following schools also benefit from reconstruction: the St. Mary's RC, the Monkmorris Anglicans, St. Dominic's Pre-Primary, the Paraclete Government School. Mr. Speaker, the continued ICT infusion in our school system must also be noted. It's also said the capacity building of schools professionals, including the regularization of teachers to the permanent establishment, would also be done. There will be increased certification through the National Training Agency in areas such as traditional boat building and yacht repair and piloting. There's also been the restructuring of the T.A. Marisha Community College. This will be done, Mr. Speaker, in collaboration with strategic international partners, including McMaster University of Canada, through the support of the Petna Foundation, funded by a well-known Grenadian, Nicholas Earl Braffett. The focus will be on strengthening the curriculum, ensuring relevance to our current and future national development needs, building teaching capacity, in addition to infrastructural improvements to the campus. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated $104 million to help us achieve the goals and objectives of the education sector. Youth and sports development. Mr. Speaker, the government is clear on its commitment towards youth development. It is for this reason we feel so strongly about our investment in the Imani program. For 2017, we have made an initial allocation, and the word initial, of $27 million to this important program. Additionally, we will continue to engage the private sector to be able to expand this program even to further adequately meet the needs of our young people and to create more gainful employment opportunities for them. Mr. Speaker, in the area of sports development, I must congratulate all our athletes for another successful year on the field of play. As a small country, Mr. Speaker, we have excelled on the regional and international stage in many sporting disciplines, including cricket, tennis, swimming, netball, football, and others. In the Rio Olympics, Mr. Speaker, Grenada featured 2 athletes in the 400-meter finals, a tremendous feat, Mr. Speaker. Even more significantly, we secured a silver medal through our premier athletic ambassador, Kirani James. In bodybuilding, Grenada had an impressive showing in the recent Caribbean and Central American meet in the Dominican Republic, Mr. Speaker, with Damian Daniel securing the gold in the heavyweight division, Mr. Speaker, a great feat. Mr. Speaker, the contract for the lighting of the National Cricket Stadium will be awarded very early in the new year or late this year, so that we all can enjoy national and international cricket at nights by the end of the first quarter of 2017. A major sporting event, Mr. Speaker, next year will be our inaugural Kirani James International Track and Field Meet, featuring international star athletes like Asafo Powell and others, whose names will be announced in January of next year. An allocation of $34.1 million is provided for the continued development of youth and sports in 2017. Healthcare, Mr. Speaker. Since coming into office, we have made steady progress in improving our healthcare system. We have paid off millions of dollars in backlog of claims for basic medicines and pharmaceuticals, while at the same time meeting our current commitments to the system. Basic medication is now more in regular supply. Mr. Speaker, government has moved decisively to resolve the staffing issues which existed at our various hospitals. To address the shortage of nurses at the General Hospital and other facilities across the country, the government has, through an agency arrangement, hired 65 nurses, some of whom have been unemployed for several years. This decision was seen as a critical first step in resolving the issue without affecting government's commitment in respect of the successful completion of the homegrown structural adjustment program. These new hires, Mr. Speaker, complement the 114 registered nurses hired so far since coming into office. Mr. Speaker, In addition to these nurses, 87 healthcare professionals were hired, including specialists, doctors, radiographers, and pharmacists. Mr. Speaker, with respect to healthcare facilities, significant progress has been made. Phase 2 of the General Hospital project is at an advanced stage, with several sub-projects already completed. Some key areas of focus for next year will be the following: the completion of Phase 2 of the General Hospital project, the commencement of the Grove Healthcare Center with grant funding from the European Union, and the retrofitting of 4 health facilities: Princess Alice Hospital, Princess Royal Hospital, the Central Medical Stores, and the Woburn Medical Station, with funding from the Department for International Development of the United Kingdom, and implemented by the Pan American Health Organization, PAO. Mr. Speaker, plans are ongoing for the construction of a new hospital. Several proposals are being reviewed. Medical insurance, Mr. Speaker, an area of serious issue. Our efforts to deliver a sustainable system of health financing through a national health insurance scheme to provide universal coverage for all citizens will continue in 2017. This effort is now being led by Minister Emmeline Pear, and that committee is at an advanced stage of consultations designed to implement this long-awaited initiative by the end of the first half of next year. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, through a public-private partnership, construction on the Carlton Home will begin next year. An allocation of $79.9 million is provided for healthcare delivery in 2017. Housing, social care, Mr. Speaker. Housing is perhaps, Mr. Speaker, one of the most burning issues facing our population at this time. The demand for housing assistance is great, and we must do what we can to address this vexing issue. For 2016, a number of key deliverables were met in the area of housing and social care. Among those, 119 families benefited from the soft loan program at a cost of $3.3 million. Over $6 million, an increase of some $1.5 million, was spent under the Materials Assistance Program, benefiting some 1,265 families. Also, 353 housing units under the Chinese Low-Income Housing Project were distributed earlier this year. And preparatory works, Mr. Speaker, to facilitate the start of the next phase of the housing units have now commenced. Government, Mr. Speaker, gave approval for the Grenada Development Bank to borrow up to $10 million to provide low-cost housing to ordinary Grenadians. Of this amount, $3 million was secured and disbursed in 2016. The GDB has already received extremely positive feedback in its efforts to secure the balance to provide further support in this important area in 2017. Mr. Speaker, in respect of government's flagship social safety net program, which is called the Support for Education, Empowerment and Development, SEED. A total of $14 million will be spent in 2016. With over 5,000 beneficiary households, Mr. Speaker, government will expand its housing and social care program in 2017. An initial allocation of $10 million is provided, as part of a soft loan and home improvement program, with additional grant funding expected from the National Transformation Fund. Government intends to spend significantly more in this area. Mr. Speaker, intense work on the second phase of the Chinese House program, which will provide homes for 647 families and will be constructed in Beauchesjoux in St. George's, Corinth in St. David's, Diamond in St. Mark's, the Villa in St. Patrick's, and Dumfries in Carriacou. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, support under the Needy Assistance Program for educational, medical, and other purposes will be expanded in 2017. Mr. Speaker, it pains me to know that our elderly, our poor, vulnerable citizens have to travel great distances, sit in the hot sun, to collect a stipend at the Treasury and other sub-offices. As a caring government and people, that must not continue. We plan, therefore, to work with the revenue officers around the country to have the monies delivered in their communities, Mr. Speaker. This will not only make their lives easier, but will help to protect their dignity and to save on their already scarce resources. The little they get, they have to pay bus with it. Don't make any sense. Investing better for inclusive growth, Mr. Speaker, and sustainable jobs. Mr. Speaker, despite the strong economic recovery and the reduction in unemployment, too many Grenadians are still out of work. Reducing unemployment, therefore, remains a key priority for us going into 2017 and beyond. Speaker, I will now proceed to outline the specific areas of interventions that will lead to faster, job-rich, inclusive, and sustainable growth. Ongoing structural reform, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, critical to achieving faster, job-rich, inclusive, and sustainable growth is a necessity, and ongoing efforts must be to enhance Grenada business and investment climate and productivity. Accordingly, resources will be allocated to sustain efforts in the following areas. Several legislative and administrative reforms are being implemented. The Grenada Investment Development Corporation Act and other administrative reforms also. The Physical Planning and Development Control Act and Building Code, another area. An online business register, an important area. An online title research facility for the deeds and land registry. The strengthening of our interagency collaboration through the SQDA system to facilitate improved transaction time and to lower costs. Also, building a modern taxpayer system that is economic growth friendly and robust will remain a top priority. At Customs, we'll expedite rollout of the SQDA system and implement stronger risk management. Also, with the support from the Caribbean Development Fund, several initiatives will be undertaken, including training in fraud prevention and investigation, the upgrade of the customs operational manual, and the purchase of the marine pilot craft. The Inland Revenue Department, Mr. Speaker, will commence implementation of a tax compliance strategy. The Citizenship by Investment Program, Mr. Speaker, another critical area. Since the start of the Citizenship by Investment Program in 2014, we now have a pipeline of 13 approved projects in key sectors of the economy, such as agriculture and tourism, of which 7 have already started its implementation. More details can be found in Annex 4 of this statement. Mr. Speaker, during 2017, we expect to see the start of construction on several more of these approved CBI projects, with several hundred new jobs estimated. To further safeguard the security and integrity of the CBI program and the country in general, a modern readable passport machinery system will be procured in 2017 at an estimated cost of $3 million. Mr. Speaker, the main source of resources from the CBI program to the government is its capital grants through the National Transformation Fund, NTF. Mindful of our efforts to maintain fiscal discipline, we have adopted extremely conservative assumptions for NTF receipts for the next year of $32.4 million. Notwithstanding this, we are extremely confident that the CBI program will deliver as much as $50 million in NTF grants, which will help government to further invest in critical programs. Agriculture and food security, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, agriculture remains the bedrock of our economy. I therefore wish to highlight several achievements in this area for 2016. The provision of vehicles and equipment to strengthen the predial larceny program to support the hard-working farmers of this country. A total of 59 families benefited from the land tenure registration program also during the course of this year. Mr. Speaker, a milestone was achieved this year with the licensing of 4 new surveyors for the first time in 20 years to facilitate effective business transactions. In 2016, there was significant improvement in fish quality assurance, which helped in maintaining Grenada's #1 listing status for exporting to the EU and other international markets. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we reconstructed the Victoria Fish Market to improve the service to the fishing community of St. Mark's. More details of the 2016 performance can be found in the printed copy of this statement. I now turn to our plans for the sector in 2017, that's agriculture. Government will continue to work towards stamping out the scourge of predial larceny through the upgrading of laws and the introduction of motion sensors and other technologies. With assistance from the Chinese government, work is underway for a multi-purpose center and greenhouse at Lassages. And on completion, it is scheduled to do so in October 2017. Some 50 construction workers are now being employed. Mr. Speaker, we'll also work towards the accreditation of the Produce Chemist Laboratory to support research and development in the areas of pests and diseases. Also, in December and January, the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, is facilitating a food safety training course for 20 of our citizens from various sectors of the agricultural industry. This training is designed to boost further Grenada's export to the U.S. market, and to ensure compliance with FDA regulations. This course is being offered to our locals free of cost. I wish to make this point here, Mr. Speaker, that checks are now being prepared to compensate farmers and homeowners of St. Andrews and St. Patrick's who were adversely affected from the freak weather system last month. The checks will be distributed in time for Christmas, as promised. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue working to develop an early warning and emergency response system to improve the safety of our fisher folks. The implementation of a national management and control program for the invasive lionfish would also be done. And the implementation of ongoing activities under the Marine Protected Area Program would also be done. Efforts to upgrade equipment at the MBIA and secure more airlift to facilitate fish export will be sustained. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, we'll revamp the agricultural and idle lands program. Accordingly, there will be no tax again on agricultural idle lands in 2017. Mr. Speaker, the commercialization process of government's agricultural estates will continue. Early in the year, operational details on Lemley Farm in Carriacou, which will focus on soursop and other fruits production, will be announced. This is in addition to the previously commercialized Bellevue and Granbra estates. Bellevue continues to expand with an innovative commercial collaboration with Windfresh and is soon to be commissioned state-of-the-art agro-processing plant at La Sagesse. When brought into full production, the La Sagesse plant will create significant opportunities for local farmers and boost Grenada's agribusiness exports. The total allocation for agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, Mr. Speaker, is $27.4 million. Tourism and culture. Mr. Speaker, the past few years have seen relatively strong growth in the tourism industry, with positive spin-offs in various other sectors. For the period January to July 2016, the number of tourists visiting our shores grew significantly by 21.9% relatively to the corresponding period in 2015. Mr. Speaker, it is well known that tourism contribution to GDP is estimated at over 25%, and it provides as much as 5,000 direct jobs to the economy. In 2016, efforts were made to enhance and develop new and existing attraction sites and activities to bolster this industry. In 2017, however, We intend to invest better and smarter in marketing the destination to increase visitor arrivals. A new feature of our marketing campaign in 2017 will be our inaugural Dive Festival. This event is expected to attract hundreds of visitors and dive enthusiasts. Starting January 2017, airlift to Grenada will increase with the introduction of JetBlue's Mint service, as well as the addition of another regular flight, which will bring the total number of JetBlue flights to 5 weekly. An approach has also been made to the government of Trinidad and Tobago and several charter companies with focus on increasing airlift service on the regional routes. Mr. Speaker, we have never forgotten Liat. But we have made it very clear, Mr. Speaker, Liat must start to run as a business. Liat cannot continue to treat the citizens of this region the way they have done. And we can make no apologies, Mr. Speaker, for the frustration, the harassment that our citizens have suffered while we continue to invest millions of dollars. Mr. Speaker, I was the Minister of Tourism, Minister of Civil Aviation in 1985. Grenada spent over $10 million US. And it was said we do not have to spend another. And every 6 months, Liat comes back for another set. It must stop, Mr. Speaker. Business must run as business. Those who want to defend Liat, let them defend what is not defendable. I will not, and this country will not defend Liat. Liat must become a business, and we will continue to support Liat as a serious business. Give us flights, we pay for it. That's the end of it. During the first half of 2017, work is expected, Mr. Speaker, to commence on an airport hotel project at the MBIA. Other critical airport projects include the runway rehabilitation works, resurfacing of the bypass road, and the construction of cargo facilities. Mr. Speaker, with our planned investments in tourism and culture, we project our visitor arrivals to continue on its strong growth path. Our hoteliers, our taxi operators, our vendors, as well as our stakeholders in the industry, including employees in the sector, with all benefits. An initial allocation, and I say the word initial, of $22.3 million is provided for tourism, civil aviation, and culture in 2017. Energy development. Mr. Speaker, we should turn now to developments in the energy sector. In particular, electricity reform and renewable energy is a necessity. Mr. Speaker, we cannot seriously talk about sustainable development without fundamentally addressing the high cost of energy. And we can't play games with this. Because energy security is the security of our country. Mr. Speaker, we intend to continue to engage GrenLec. We're not against GrenLec. We just want a more responsible GrenLec. And other stakeholders in the implementation of this important reform, which is a clear testimony to government's willingness to work with all investors, local and foreign, in the best interests of Grenada. In June of this year, we held a series of consultations with stakeholders to present the results of extensive technical studies into Grenada's geothermal potential, which was undertaken with the assistance of the governments of New Zealand and Japan. The studies revealed, Mr. Speaker, that there is a very high possibility of geothermal energy in Mount St. Catherine area. Several donors have expressed interest in providing grants and low-cost funding to implement the next phase of this important project, including the drilling and testing of wells. Mr. Speaker, we are also coordinating with CDB on a pilot project to put solar systems on at least 2 government buildings next year. And they are the General Science Building at the TAMCC and at Her Majesty's prisons. In addition to reducing Grenada's carbon footprint, this will contribute significantly to reducing on our utility costs. Carriacou and Petit-Martinique affairs. During the course of this year, achievements on the Sister Isles include a further upgrading of equipment and facilities at the Lauriston Airport. Key features were the construction of a roadway for the launch of a rescue boat operations, the purchase of a rescue boat, a fire truck, and a ground service vehicle. Several roads were also rehabilitated in the Sister Isle. Total expenditure for 2016 amounted to $10.9 million. However, in 2017, $14 million is allocated to meet the recurrent and capital needs of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique. Mr. Speaker, a major initiative will be the construction of a passenger and cargo port facility at Harveyville. Gensu Construction and Engineering Company Limited won that bid for this project at a cost of $3.4 million funded locally. A key condition of the contract is that as much as local labor will be employed and utilized. This project, Mr. Speaker, this project is expected to break ground before the end of this year, with an estimated employment of 15 to 20 persons. Mr. Speaker, this project will significantly contribute not only to the safety and security of passengers, but will be an important addition to the infrastructure stock of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique. Another initiative of note in Carriacou, Mr. Speaker, is a $1 million expansion of Tyrrell Bay Marina project to start in January. This phase will see the acquisition of additional marine equipment, the construction of a full-service kitchen, and the refurbishment of a 4-bedroom cottage of international standards. This will create a further job opportunities on the Sister Isles, Mr. Speaker. Information and Communication Technologies, ICT. Mr. Speaker, information and communication technologies hold great promise for employment and economic growth and development in our country. During the course of this year, we have made important advances in this area as follows. 1. Under the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program, we have provided business incubator support and grants to 21 entrepreneurs to encourage and support the development of small businesses in IT enabling services. 2. We have established a center of excellence at the T.A. Marshall Community College, which provides training opportunities in medical billing and coding and in animation. Mr. Speaker, government is also partnering with a major IT company out of India, Multi-Group Relationship Management, MGRM, to develop and roll out in 2017 a government-wide IT platform that will assist the delivery of services through the internet, such as making payments, filing application for services, and information sharing in general. Trade and export development. Mr. Speaker, increasing Grenada's share of exports to the rest of the world remains a top priority next year. Our share of total exports for this year, compared to the corresponding period of last year, grew by 2% to $650.5 million. In 2016, the Bureau Analytical Chemistry Laboratory, it's important to note, in Grenada, became the first national laboratory within the national standards body in the OECS to receive an ISO accreditation for specific sets of tests that are geared to supporting Grenada's export sector. This accreditation will directly benefit manufacturers in gaining access to regional and international markets, including the US and EU. With assistance from the Caribbean Development Bank, the Marketing and National Importing Board, PAC House, will be upgraded to help increase export earnings. Mr. Speaker, Grenada is now poised to begin exporting Coca-Cola and other beverages once again to other regional countries with a recent investment of Coscab Holdings in the Grenada Bottling Company Limited. Another area of support to small business development. Mr. Speaker, government will continue its support for small business development in 2017, given its significant impact on job creation and income generation. The Grenada Development Bank currently has access to $8.1 million through funding from the CARICOM Development Fund to support existing businesses. Also, under the Small Business Development Fund administered through the Grenada Development Bank, a total of 494 loans with disbursement of $4.8 million have been granted so far, helping to create some 836 jobs, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, mindful of the complaints about our small business program, government is actively seeking to restructure the administrative arrangements of this program to make it more efficient and to meet the needs of the ordinary Grenadians it was intended to benefit. Through the Small Business Development Center and the Grenada Investment Development Corporation, government will continue to provide hand-holding support, such as business training and guidance to startups and existing businesses, so as to continue to bolster job creation. More details on key results and focus of government small business support programs can be found in Annex 14, of our document. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to major public sector projects. Mr. Speaker, this section will now address the major public projects and programs with a focus on creating the right infrastructure and landscape, social landscape, that would help propel our people to seek and create opportunities for themselves. One, the St. Patrick Road Network Program, $27 million, Mr. Speaker. The that contract for this important project, which is funded by a loan from the OPEC Fund for International Development, OFID, is expected to be awarded in early 2017 and work started shortly thereafter. This project will see the rehabilitation and upgrading of two road sections in St. Patrick's, measuring 16 kilometers or 10 miles from Duquesne to Certez and from Montfendu to Pointsfield, the construction of 4 bridges and the rehabilitation of 12 smaller bridges and proper drainage facilities. This project, Mr. Speaker, will provide 150 jobs. Second, the construction of the Grenada Houses of Parliament, $29 million, Mr. Speaker. The construction of the Parliament building is now well underway and is expected to be completed early in 2018. Employment on these facilities is now at 80 and is expected to increase significantly in 2017. As reported previously, grant funding for this project has been secured from the government of Mexico and the United Arab Emirates. An allocation of $10.4 million has been provided in 2017 estimates of revenue and expenditure for this project. 3. Regional Disaster and Vulnerability Project, RDVRP. $94.5 million, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is an ongoing project designed to build resilience to the impact of climate change and reduce vulnerabilities to natural disasters. During 2016, we are happy to report that we have delivered on several major projects under this project. Those are outlined in the written version of the statement. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, however, this project, the focus will be on the completion and rebuilding of the Hubble and Lance bridges in St. John's. The restructuring of the Holy Cross RC School in Munich, St. Andrews, and the start of the St. John's River Flood Mitigation Project in River Road in St. George's. Mr. Speaker, this project, which started in 2011, is expected to be completed in 2018. It is financed with a grant from the Climate Investment Fund under the pilot program for climate resilience and a loan from the World Bank. An allocation of $4.6 million is provided for continuation of this project, which will provide 130 jobs approximately. 4th, the reconstruction of the Grove Healthcare Center, $7 million. Mr. Speaker, grant funding for this project from the European Union under the 11th EDF is expected to become available in early 2017. All the preparatory works have already been completed, and construction is expected to begin very early in the new year. Mr. Speaker, $4.1 million is allocated for this project in 2017, and 16 jobs will be created during the construction phase. 5thly, projects under the UK Caribbean Infrastructure Fund of $81 million, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Grenada must be thankful to be among the 9 Caribbean countries benefiting from this $300 million in grant funding from the United Kingdom Department of International Development, DFID, under the Caribbean UK Infrastructure Facility, to assist in rebuilding climate and disaster-resilient economic infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that the former Prime Minister of Britain chose Grenada as one of the 2 countries that he visited last year before this important announcement. These resources, Mr. Speaker, have been allocated to 2 major projects, which will see over 120 jobs created. And the projects are the Grenada water supply expansion and sewage disposal improvement project of $34 million, which would involve the expansion of the Concord storage facility, distribution to St. George's, and the upgrading of the sewage disposal system in St. George's. And the second one, the Grenada Western Main Road Corridor Upgrade Project, $48 million, to enhance climate change resilience in the Western Road Corridor. Road rehabilitation and maintenance, Mr. Speaker, programs is another major one, sixth one, of $106.7 million. Mr. Speaker, our road network will receive a significant boost in 2017 and beyond. The total estimated expenditure over the next 3 years is in excess of $100 million, which will create over 4,000 short-term job opportunities. These projects and programs will include regular road maintenance, such as debushing, asphalt works, drainage, concrete works, rockfall and landslip at various sites, and agricultural feeder roads. Mr. Speaker, we are moving speedily to address the recent episode of fallen rocks along the Western Main Road. This is serious. We have already written to the Caribbean Development Bank for an emergency funding to the tune of $750,000 to undertake immediate preventive works in critical areas throughout the country. There are already indications that our project will be favorably received. Mr. Speaker, we are pleased to report that the Kuwaiti Fund has only last month approved a grant of $1.4 million to undertake a feasibility study which involves environmental protection study also and preliminary designs for the rehabilitation of the main road connecting Guelph City to the tongue of St. George's. Mr. Speaker, this project will pave the way for serious road rehabilitation works on the western side of Grenada in the coming months and will provide dozens of short-term jobs opportunities for our citizens. Special projects, number 7. This program of $5 million, Mr. Speaker, is a small community-oriented project program administered through small contractors and continue to be instrumental in helping to address the basic needs of families and the communities. In 2016, a total of $6.7 million was spent, creating in excess of 1,000 jobs. Mr. Speaker, for 2017, an initial allocation of $5 million is budgeted and estimated to create over 800 short-term jobs. We intend to increase this allocation should the CBI program perform as expected next year. The 8th program, OECS Regional Tourism Competitive Project, $16.2 million, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2017 will see the commencement of the tourism-based project, which is supported by a loan from the World Bank to target the following. 1, the development of Fort George as a key tourist attraction site to be managed through the public-private partnership program. 2, development of a ferry service facility of international standards at Harveyvale Port in Carriacou to promote inter-regional movement of visitors. To accommodate the national component of this project, we plan to relocate the police headquarters to a new location. An allocation of $1.25 million is provided in 2017 for its commencement. Eighth, the Basic Needs Trust Program. The Basic Needs Trust Program, BNTF 7 and 8, is approximately $8.2 million. Mr. Speaker, this BNTF project is a CDB grant-supported project with contributions from the government of Grenada. In 2016, several sub-projects under BNTF 7 and 8 were started or completed. These details are provided in Annex 11 to this statement. Mr. Speaker, several other projects in various stages of implementation or commencement will be in 2017, and they include the Davy Fisherman Locker in St. Patrick's, the St. Teresa Vincent's Preschool construction, the Telescope Resource Center construction, the TAMCC building construction, the construction of the water treatment and distribution plant in Munich. Mr. Speaker, these 19 projects listed above have created 171 jobs to date. The estimated cash injection into the economy is $7.7 million. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of BNTF 9 will see a further injection of $6 million into the economy and in excess of 150 jobs created. Mr. Speaker, BNTF 9 will be expanded to include a livelihood component. The focus areas include access roads, education, renewable energy and energy efficiency. An allocation of $4.4 million is provided for the completion of Phase 7 and 8. And therefore, in respect of the new BNTF, an initial allocation of $1.2 million is provided. The ninth program, Market Access and Rural Enterprise Development Program, MARIP. This program is $22 million, Mr. Speaker. And that MARIP program is a poverty reduction program with funding support from the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and a counterpart funding from the government of Grenada. The key results for 2016 include vocational and skills training of some 600 young people in various disciplines, including cruise ship services, agro-processing, early childhood development, computer repairs, motor vehicle engine repairs, and allied geriatric health care. Over 150 young people received certification at the Caribbean Vocational Qualification CVQ level. Mr. Speaker, as a result of this training, 69 young persons have already secured permanent employment, Mr. Speaker. An MOU also was signed with the University of the West Indies to provide professional development for the beneficiaries of this program. 11 young people, Mr. Speaker, have received scholarships to pursue studies in events, project, and stores management. The following farm access, bridges, and roads, Mr. Speaker, were completed under this MARIP program. Gut Road in St. Andrews, Granborough Bridge in St. Andrews, Fountain Road in St. Patrick's, Shambo Road in St. Patrick's, Ahoma Road in St. Andrews, Mount Pleasant Mondor Road in Carriacou. A total of 62 persons were employed, with some 389 farmers directly benefiting from improved access to their lands for agricultural production. Mr. Speaker, a total of $1.5 million was spent this year. The MARIP program is scheduled to end in March 2017, but a proposal for an extension is currently under consideration by CDB and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. Further details of merits achievements can be found in Annex 12. Mr. Speaker, for 2017, a total of $2.4 million is allocated for merit critical invention. The 10th project, Sutter's Breakwater Project, $4.8 million. Mr. Speaker, we wish to thank the people of Sutter's for their patience and understanding, to reiterate government's commitment to protect the homes and businesses currently being affected by the erosion of the shoreline. This ongoing Sutter's Breakwater project has created approximately 15 to 20 jobs to the benefit of the local community, with an estimated completion date of June 2017. 11th program, Integrated Solid Waste Management Project. That's a $40.9 million, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government has secured $29 million from the Caribbean Development Bank to support the implementation of this important project, which entails the construction of new landfill at Perseverance, the renewal of equipment, among other components. Preparatory works, therefore, are currently underway, and the project will take approximately 30 months to complete, providing at least 25 jobs. Mr. Speaker, another one, project, extreme rainfall guava mitigation project, and that is a project of $23.3 million investment. Mr. Speaker, this project aims to reduce the risks of landslides and flood hazards in the parishes of St. John's and St. Mark's. Key activities include road rehabilitation works, the construction of the Middle River Bridge, and flood mitigation works in the town of St. John's. Work was delayed, but will be accelerated with the contracting out of this project supervisor and satisfying outstanding conditions. This project is expected to generate 20 construction jobs. Mr. Speaker, the 12th one, Global Environmental Facility, GEF, the Ridge to Ridge project of $8.5 million. Mr. Speaker, the Ridge to Ridge project in Grenada is funded through a Global Environment Facility grant. And that aims to ensure that biodiversity and ecosystems functions within and around the marine and terrestrial protected areas in Grenada, to make sure that they are better protected from all threats. The project activities started in April 2016 and include: 1, the construction of visitor centers at Mongazo; 2, the extension of the Forestry Department head office at Queen's Park; 3, the construction and development of the fish aggregating devices on the western side of Grenada; 4, the commencement of work on the coral reef restoration and propagation initiative. Mr. Speaker, an amount of $1.2 million is budgeted for the continuation of this important project in 2017, which will provide 25 jobs. Mr. Speaker, in actively pursuing a major initiative which is expected to start by June next year, instead of relying on government cash flow to reconstruct and rehabilitate government offices destroyed after Hurricanes Ivan and Emily, government will also raise concessionary funding to restore several government offices nationwide. This project would provide significant opportunities for small contractors across the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and will provide several hundred construction jobs. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to major private sector projects. Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt that investor and business confidence in Grenada has risen significantly over the past few years. There is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, too, that government is diligently working to create the right environment in which the private sector and local citizens can strive. Mr. Speaker, we cannot talk about improved doing business ranking if we have no businesses at all to show. What does that number mean, Mr. Speaker? There's no meaning at all. Mr. Speaker, while there is still work to be done since coming into office, the number of projects on stream or scheduled to start paint a picture of investment climate that is robust and getting better. Through the Grenada Industrial Development Corporation, a total of 27 new investments were approved for incentive support, with total proposed investment of $138 million and the potential to create 1,618 jobs. Many of those projects are already underway at various stages of implementation. I will now highlight, Mr. Speaker, a few of those private sector projects, even with lower business ranking. Let me state them. The Point at Petit Calivini Resort, the phase 1 of this project, is estimated to cost $43 million, and it's not to start, Mr. Speaker. Started in January of this year, and is expected to be completed by the third quarter of 2017. This project, Mr. Speaker, not will it be employing, currently employs over 80 construction workers. Lower business ranking. Horseshoe Cove in St. David's, Mr. Speaker. The launch of phase 1 of this 6-star, $40 million hotel and villa is carded to start in February. It is expected to provide 300 construction jobs and 250 permanent jobs on completion. A $5.4 million bowling alley entertainment launch project in the south of the island not will be started, but it's 80% completed, employing 35 workers and expected to provide 14 permanent jobs during operations. Lower business ranking. FCR Enterprise Limited, the fifth one, a 300-seat call center operation located at the Spice Basket, became operational this year, currently employing 80 workers and expected to add another 90 more by the end of March 2017. Lower business ranking. Clear Harbor Call Center. This facility now employs 600 Grenadians, and another 200 employees are expected to come on board by the end of March 2017. Lower business ranking. The Silver Sands Resort Developmental Project, $63 million luxury resort hotel, is expected to be completed in 2017 and has so far created in excess of 175 jobs. Lower business ranking. On completion, permanent employment will be available for over 60 Grenadians. Mr. Speaker, as can be seen, the Riviera Hotel site preparation works already started on this $35 million project, with many attempts to stop it. Once operational, permanent employment will be created for approximately 260 Grenadians. Should I repeat? Lower business ranking. The True Blue project, that's number 9. This, Mr. Speaker, is a multi-phase $160 million project. It will be commenced in the first quarter of 2017 and is expected to provide in excess of 120 construction jobs and over 150 permanent jobs. Deliverer, the 10th one, Deliverer Development Project, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this $150 million project was relaunched last month and is expected to generate over 75 jobs in St. Patrick's and the surrounding areas. The 11th one, Solamente Villa. This villa development project is currently underway at an estimated cost of $23.6 million, providing 20 construction jobs not to come, but is now underway. The 12th one, the Honeycomb Apartments. I'm stating them, Mr. Speaker, because they can check them. The Honeycomb Apartments in True Blue. This is a $16 million project, commences in January. It will commence in January. 80 construction jobs will be created and 50 long-term ones upon completion. The 13th one, the DAM Enterprise, a $10 million 40-room apartment building in True Blue, is estimated to start in January and will provide approximately 36 construction jobs. Mr. Speaker, the 14th one, the Spiceland Mall, close to where we are, expansion project is well underway at a total cost of $16 million. Lower business ranking, but more jobs and more opportunities there. Approximately 25 workers are now involved in the construction, and upon completion, 180 to 200 jobs will be generated as projected by the proprietor. Mr. Speaker, 15. Independent agencies, a $3 million expansion of their facilities. Work is already underway with about 15 construction workers and technicians which will come on board soon. The technicians will come on board soon. It is scheduled for completion in 6 months. Mr. Speaker, the 16th one, Grand Fresh. Implementation is underway on this $12 million investment agro-processing plant with 17 construction jobs created. Ongoing. The Clarkscourt Bay Marina, that's 16th project. Phase 1 of this project, $40 million project, is 85% completed with 100 construction workers. Not to come, but is ongoing. Phase 2 and 3 will be rolled out early in 2017, including the restaurant facility. 16, the Mount Cinnamon expansion. Mr. Speaker, the construction of 32 additional villas commenced in July, not to commence, but started already, at an estimated cost of $180.9 million. 50 construction jobs are now being created, with a further 75 upon completion. 17th one. The Grenada Marine construction project of $3.5 million expansion of the current boatyard facility is now underway. The 18th one. Sandals. Dozens of workers are engaged in this US $4 million ongoing expansion project. Lots of workers employed. 19. The Hideaway True Blue Incorporated project. This is a US $9.1 million apartment condominium building. Will commence next year, providing, Mr. Speaker, 50 construction jobs and 40 indirect and permanent employments when completed. 20. The commercial complex at True Blue, and $80 million, are now employing 18 nationals, Mr. Speaker, another major one. The St. George's University has now indicated a $40 million expansion and capital improvement project. And that is slated for the next few years to include new dorms, teaching, and other facilities with tremendous employment opportunities for our citizens. It's important, Mr. Speaker, to point out 2008 to 2013, no expansion literally took place at that important facility. But they are back again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are other developments that will create 100 more jobs, including the La Luna Villa Resort development, the Tri-Services Communications Limited Call Center, Sanctuary in Carriacou, the Palm Grenada Limited 36-bedroom apartment complex in True Blue, the Good Guy Apartments 54-bedroom apartment building in Lansapine, Pizza Hut in Grandance expansion, and a Point in Hope St. Andrews real estate development project. All these and more, Mr. Speaker. Business confidence, lower business ranking. Mr. Speaker, in the area of real estate, development, there continues to be a stark increase, as evidenced by the projects outlined above. Mr. Speaker, the experts have given the numbers. We are pleased to announce that the annual Grenada Real Estate Report, that's not coming from government, coming from Century 21, which will be officially released at the end of this month, states, and I quote, last year, 2015, we had a remarkable improvement in real estate sales, with sales volume surging by 71%. That's not a government stating this. As 2016 comes to a close, they continue to state, the Grenada real estate market is projected to set a new high, with a nearly 20% increase over 2015, unquote, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this growth is reportedly enhanced by the purchase of developmental properties by international investors and a strong showing in the number of buyers from the Caribbean countries. Public-private partnerships. It's an important one. Mr. Speaker, government maintains that in order to bridge the gap between limited public sector capacity and the ongoing demands for development and opportunities, public-private partnerships are critical. We therefore continue to explore all avenues to enhance this area. I wish to highlight two major ones, Mr. Speaker. There are others. The Grenville Commercial Complex. We are now engaged in negotiations with the Cooperative Bank for a private-public partnership to construct and manage the Grenville Commercial Complex. That will house the Grenville Revenue Office, a branch of the Cooperative Bank, and other businesses, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to announce that the company is now registered, and once up and running, this project is expected to be completed in 2 years to provide scores of jobs for the residents of St. Andrews and the surrounding areas. Public-private partnership, Mr. Speaker. The second one, the Gravel and Concrete and Emulsion Production Corporation partnership. After publicly inviting proposal, government has provided the pursuance of a PPP arrangement to facilitate capital development, to restructure the operations, and restore profitability at the gravel and concrete operations. The selected private sector investor, Mr. Speaker, will make significant capital investment into the company and will be required to cover the entire operations and assume the large debts of the gravel and concrete operation. This is crucial, Mr. Speaker. Cross-cutting issues. First one, law and order. Mr. Speaker, the maintenance of law and order remains one of our biggest assets, and we must protect it. Grenada continues to be regarded as one of the safest places in the world, Mr. Speaker. In 2016, some of the key results in the area of law and order include the following. Additional manpower. A total of 48 new recruits were taken on board to support the operations of the RGPF. 2. Significant investments were made in transport equipment and supplies, such as a command vehicle fire truck, 14 mobile units, and retrofitting of the Coast Guard vessel. More details on this critical area will be provided in the full statement in this document. In 2017, Mr. Speaker, we'll be spending over $50.3 million for further strengthening of the Royal Grenada Police Force. Environmental management, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, government continues to build our country's defenses against the negative effects of climate change. The recent weather events in St. Andrews, St. Patrick's, and other surrounding areas are fresh in our minds. Grenada's recent assumption, therefore, of the chairmanship of the World Bank Small States Forum presents a golden opportunity for our country to champion the challenges of small states at the international level, to help build resilience, and address inherent vulnerabilities and achieve sustainable development for all our citizens. Mr. Speaker, Grenada stands to benefit significantly from additional concessional funding from the World Bank and other donors, as the issues of small states' vulnerabilities receive greater recognition. More details on the environmental management program can be found in the printed version of the statement. Mr. Speaker, I wish to pinpoint that there are also several other critical areas which are captured in the printed version of my statement, including foreign affairs and disaster management and other areas that will be available. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to another critical area. Fiscal relief measures, Mr. Speaker. I now wish to address fiscal measures that will likely touch every citizen and sector of our society. Mr. Speaker, our fundamental philosophy of putting more disposable income in the hands of the people has never been changed. But without the decisive response by this government to confront the fiscal challenges that we faced when we came into office, the situation today would have been unthinkable. Mr. Speaker, thanks to decisive and united leadership and the sacrifices of our people, we have built a solid foundation, and now we are better positioned to pursue this philosophy. During our consultations on the way forward, after this program, there has been consensus on 2 points. Protect the gains of the program and ensure the benefits are more widely spread, as I indicated before. Mindful of this important consensus on our commitment to fiscal responsibility, we propose to implement the following relief measures in 2017. And more will come, Mr. Speaker. 1, a tax registration amnesty period for the period January to March 2017 will facilitate the registration of taxpayers with the IRD without imposition of the penalty for failure to register. We ask people to take advantage. 2, a tax filing amnesty for annual stamp tax for the tax period 2013 to 2015 without the imposition of the filing penalty would be undertaken. This period of amnesty will be from June to August 2017. Take advantage. Furthermore, we have heard the request from the business community for relief on the rate of the annual stamp tax. We will therefore reduce the rate from 0.75 to 0.7. And that is at this stage. We can go further as we assess the effect of the program, recognizing the final review is in June 2017. The effect of this tax was for the period 2018 because already notices have been sent out for 2017. Third, the reduction in the price of a 20-pound cylinder from $42 to $40 from January 2017. The reduction of the personal income tax rate from 15% to 10%. Mr. Speaker, we are doing everything in administrative way to make sure this effect takes place in the new fiscal year starting January 2017. So have a better Christmas. Fifthly, Mr. Speaker, the removal of all income tax on pension income. I'm sure my friend from the labor movement will be very happy with that. And this takes effect from January 2017. Mr. Speaker, additional tax relief based on the performance of government's finances will be considered in a new fiscal year. For example, on the rates of income tax and stamp duty tax. We will again in 2017 examine this. But we have to be responsible. Mr. Speaker, the timing of these adjustments is to ensure that we meet our obligations under the program and and the fiscal responsibility law, as well as to make the requisite administrative arrangements in the Inland Revenue Department. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to make the point that even before we implemented these new relief measures, our tax rates, and that must be noted, are among the lowest in the ECCU. Check the facts. In fact, the only other country lower than Grenada is Antigua. Mr. Speaker, our record shows that we continue to be a responsible and progressive economy for the benefit of all Grenadians. Wages, salaries, and pension reform. Mr. Speaker, I wish to turn to the public service. Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I do not recognize and pay tribute to the exercise of patriotism and commitment to national interests that our public sector unions have demonstrated. Mr. Speaker, in my many years in public service, I believe that we are seeing a significant opportunity for partnership and dialogue. We don't have to always agree, but we must work together. In light of this recognition, Mr. Speaker, as we are addressing the legitimate concerns of our public officers, we will have to balance these efforts by requiring higher levels of performance and value for money for the people of our country, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, there are two priorities. Government is in the process of designing a long-term, comprehensive approach to human resource development management and development in the public service. This new approach will set the direction for the strategic management of the wage bill, as framed by the fiscal responsibility legislation that was previously passed by Parliament. While there has been initial dialogue on the fiscal responsibility legislation, the future success requires deeper engagement and collaboration with the public sector unions and other key partners to advance the design and implementation of the new human resource management and development approach for the public service. This trust, Mr. Speaker, is critical to safeguard and build on the gains realized during the last years. We'll focus on the following. 1. Resolving long-standing industrial relation issues with public officers, including compensation and terms and conditions in a sustainable and responsible manner, including the phased regularization of public officers and teachers. 2. Commissioning the first ever public service training center, a building which is in an advanced stage of refurbishment and will be completed so that the operations will start by the middle of next year. Pension reform. Pension reform, Mr. Speaker, is the second and most important ongoing priority. Mr. Speaker, this is to address the long-standing issue of public service pension. Mr. Speaker, this issue was created in 1983 and has evaded a workable solution throughout the years. This government, therefore, is committed that before the end of 2017, there will be a framework to provide a just and equitable, adequate, and affordable and sustainable retirement income for the Grenada public officers. A critical success factor will be constructive engagement with the unions. In preparation for this process, we have secured technical assistance to conduct a comprehensive review of the status and to identify options. A time-bound task force has been proposed. The task force will be made up of representatives of all public sector unions and the government, and with appropriate technical support from the National Insurance Board and other entities. We have shared the roadmap with the public sector unions and have recently received a response to proceed. We propose to start implementing the recommendations of the task force as they become available. Mr. Speaker, I am committed to solving this issue before I leave my service in government. If we talk about legacy, Mr. Speaker, this is a legacy of which I will be very proud. Now I turn to wages and salaries. I know that is one that is an immediate horizon for all public servants. Mr. Speaker, all public officers have carried their share of sacrifices during that period of adjustment. We all agree. It is for these reasons, Mr. Speaker, that government will redouble its efforts to address their concerns, even within the context of our constraints of the structural adjustment program. We have already brought increment payments current for 2016, and we will maintain current payments going forward. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to announce by next Friday, December 16th, we will pay not one but two further installments of increments, specifically for 2014 and January to June 2016. Santa Claus coming. And we will continue, Mr. Speaker, honoring all outstanding payments and increments to public officers to be completed by February 2017. Mr. Speaker, we are in negotiations on salary increases and fringe benefits for the period 2017 to 2019. It is our hope that those negotiations will be completed by the end of this year. Once agreement is reached with our union partners, the new salaries will be implemented with effect of January 1st, 2017. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report one of the major unions have agreed to sign the agreement. This morning the announcement came to me, and hopefully that will be done today. So Santa Claus will come even faster, Mr. Speaker, for some of the union workers. Mr. Speaker, for the first time ever, we are working on a one-off payment agreement to every public officer who would have served a substantial portion of the period 2013 to 2016. That is the time of the restructuring program. In recognition of their contribution and shared sacrifice during the homegrown program. Discussions with the various unions have begun, and from indication we are confident that we will reach a satisfactory agreement and will be able to meet all those payments by February 2017, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our administration has always been guided by the belief that there is a time for sowing and a time for reaping. We promise that With shared sacrifice, we will come shared benefits. And Mr. Speaker, we are delivering. Acknowledgements. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the government and people of this country, I would like to thank all those who have contributed in putting Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique back on its feet once more. It cannot just be the government, all of us. Also, I am also indeed extremely grateful to the many individuals who have contributed to the preparation and delivery of this year's budget. A detailed listing of acknowledgements can be found in the full statement. But, Mr. Speaker, permit me, however, to single out a few. Mr. Speaker, I am deeply appreciative of my cabinet colleagues for their ongoing sacrifices. They are the only public officers and servants who have not received any increase in pay since 2013. That is not fair. It cannot be fair. I heard the cries of the parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker. They say they have a union, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to specially recognize the former permanent secretary, now governor of the ECCB, Mr. Timothy Antwine, for his sterling contribution to the success of the homegrown program, and to the Ministry of Finance over the years. I would also like to take this opportunity to express my commendation to the acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance who had to fill such a large shoes. Also to the deputy permanent secretaries, the accountant general, the chief budget officer, and members of the budget unit, the head of policy and members of the policy unit, the macroeconomic advisor, the head of management of the debt management and members of the debt unit, the head of corporate communications and other members of the core management team, the staff of the customs and inland revenue and their leadership, the other general staff of the Ministry of Finance and Energy, as well as the managers and staff of the government princery. Mr. Speaker, I'm particularly pleased with the leadership of the Inland Revenue Department and the Customs and Excise Division, and the overall leadership of the Ministry of Finance. I'm proud of you all. Mr. Speaker, they have risen to the occasion when it mattered. I would also like to thank the secretary, the acting secretary to the cabinet, the permanent secretaries, the heads of non-ministerial departments, the press secretary, the communications advisor, managers and staff of statutory bodies for sticking to the cause, and state-owned enterprises, and all other public officers who have also contributed to the preparation and delivery of this budget. Mr. Speaker, I would like once again to thank the Committee of Social Partners, the groups and individuals who participated and continue to participate in consultations. Your contributions have enriched today's presentation and to get us to where we are. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank you, Speaker, and the entire staff of the Parliament, clerk and others, for the use of our technology for today's presentation. Therefore, I move now to the conclusion statement. Mr. Speaker, 4 years ago, our nation was lacking in courageous and unified leadership. Our economy was in economic freefall. Many of our people had lost hope. Today, 4 years later, Mr. Speaker, effective collective leadership has been restored to this country. Confidence has been restored. Hope, the vital factor, has been restored. Hope. The turnaround of the Grenadian economy, Mr. Speaker, over the past 4 years is a remarkable story of courageous leadership, national unity, sacrifice, resilience, and results, Mr. Speaker. Our government, Mr. Speaker, did not shirk its responsibility. We took responsibility, Mr. Speaker. We didn't just blame people. We got on to work. The scripture declares, Mr. Speaker, unto whosoever much is given, of him much is required, Mr. Speaker. Luke 12:48. Mr. Speaker, humbled by the overwhelming mandate given to us by the people of this beautiful land. We did not set about to rule. Instead, Mr. Speaker, we reached out to people. Not ruling, not about power, but sharing responsibilities. We reached out, Mr. Speaker, to the social partners, to our people and to developmental partners. We reached out to all of them. We asked for support, and they gave us. Mr. Speaker, the naysayers, and you must have them, they are necessary in a democratic society. They were vocal and contentious. They said we did not have the discipline to implement a homegrown program. We did. They said we could not stay the course. We have. They said the economy will not grow. It has. Mr. Speaker, what they forget is this. With man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. Those who know the Bible well will find it. Mr. Speaker, we have shown that we can rise above whatever negatives there are out there. We don't pay attention to it, we move on. We have remained steadfast in our message. We continue to reach across the aisles to all our opponents if they wish to. We have demonstrated that it's through our work with the social partners, our bipartisan calls to facilitate constitutional reform, our support and endorsement of our fellow Grenadians in their work with regional and international organizations. We have not attempted to interfere with everything we have done to support people, opponents of ours, who have been given opportunity to serve abroad. Not one we have stopped or tried to stop. In fact, encouraged it. Mr. Speaker, we have been resolute in our calls to work together. Someone doesn't want to work with you, you can't do anything about it. Working together has not been for us an idea, Mr. Speaker, but it is a reality. It is a way of life that we must embrace and promote. This is why going forward, Mr. Speaker, we have to stay steady hands, Mr. Speaker. For the future is too crucial to risk it with wild experiments, nice talk, and unproven theories. Clip talks don't work. Work is what works, Mr. Speaker. We understand, Mr. Speaker, too well that we cannot build an economy and a country and say no to every idea for development. No, no, no. Vote no. Vote no. It's easy to say no, Mr. Speaker. But say yes and work. That's a difficult one. Nor can we allow discord to be a currency in which we constantly trade. Discord. Everything is noise and confusion. No one wins, Mr. Speaker, when we lose opportunities that are designed to improve the governance and development of this beautiful land of our country. For the prospects of this country, Mr. Speaker, is in our hands, Mr. Speaker. We cannot celebrate no when the country does not win. Instead of celebrating and promoting failure, we must applaud initiative and vision and work to achieve more and more. Mr. Speaker, working together means resisting attempts at grandstanding and gallery in favor of results and results. Resolve and results, sorry. For when we fail, Mr. Speaker, to work together, it affects the least among us the most. The people who can least afford it. When we fail to work together, we keep our young people back, our disabled back, and our women back. We can celebrate they're going backwards. When we fail together to work together, Mr. Speaker, we hold justice hostage and poison hope with cynicism. Mr. Speaker, the psalmist says to us, behold how good and pleasant it is for when brothers dwell in unity. Unquote. The psalmist doesn't lie, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, working together means a united front in Belmont and Bel Air, Douglaston and Dudma, to solve the real problems of real people. Over the past 4 years, Mr. Speaker, we have tackled those real problems. We have shared in the sacrifices, and now we are sharing in the benefits. Mr. Speaker, I say, if anyone is in doubt, I say to you, just ask. Ask the public servants who have received their salaries on time every month since we assumed office. Just ask them. Ask the public servants, Mr. Speaker, and pensioners who has received over $50 million in retroactive payments and more coming as Santa Claus comes, Mr. Speaker. Ask the hundreds of contractors who are unpaid but have now been paid or being paid, Mr. Speaker. Ask them. If anyone is in doubt, Mr. Speaker, just ask. I say just ask. Ask the hundreds of young people who have now received scholarships to pursue their dreams. Ask them, Mr. Speaker. Ask the children of Lafayette School who now finally have their school, a beautiful facility to work with. Ask the youths who have now have a second chance through the Grand Baccalaureate Juvenile Center. Ask them. Ask our young and promising athletes who can now compete with the best, and we'll see the best at the new athletics and football stadium come next year. Mr. Speaker, if anyone is still in doubt, just ask, ask, ask. Ask the farmers, Mr. Speaker, in Cloget and Concord, Mamacan and Munich, who now have easy access to lands because of the new farm roads that were interfered with by the previous governments. government. Ask the homeowners in Monge and Subies who now have a place of their own to call home. Mr. Speaker, ask the thousands of persons who now have permanent livelihood and hope. Mr. Speaker, ask the hundreds of people who have received help to start and expand their small businesses. Mr. Speaker, our work is not finished. But we give thanks. We give thanks together because much has been achieved. Mr. Speaker, to all our citizens who are here and not here, but listening, you came to hear. Now go and tell the story. Tell the story of recovery. Tell the story of recovery, reconciliation, and results, Mr. Speaker. Tell it. Go tell it to the mountains. Mr. Speaker, we say to them, to God be the glory. Great things he has done. Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt that we can go further and higher. If we do it, only do it together. Together. May God continue to bless this beautiful nation of Grenada, Karaku, and P.T. Martin. Thank you.
Well, the chamber now rises as the Prime Minister completes his more than 2-hour-long presentation of the budget statement. We should be stressing that the budget statement, the actual, the official figures and so forth are contained in the booklet of the estimates of revenue and expenditure, and that's a huge document which is being prepared by the Ministry of Finance. The budget presentation of just as the Prime Minister would say, normally from a news point of view, we'd say $1.1 billion, but he did give every figure: $1,100,578,144. And he did chip in to say that it's a real billion, reference to a previous budget of $1 billion. Recurrent expenditure $657.2 million. Current expenditure $599 million. Capital expenditure $154.3 million. I think the speaker's trying to get the attention of the audience in the gallery, reminding, even though he didn't say that, but the House isn't officially adjourned, is the Prime Minister having presented the budget statement for 2017, and we have the Leader of Government Business who will now be addressing the House.
Speaker, I beg to move the adjournment of this honorable House to Monday, 12th December, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Honorable members, just before I put a question for the adjournment, let me just say that the question which was put on the motion in respect to the estimate of revenue and expenditure for the fiscal year January 1st to December 31st, 2017 was put prematurely. And therefore, the response now considered null and void. The question, therefore, must be considered as proposed. Now I put the adjournment question. And I remember the question is that this honorable House stand adjourned until 9 o'clock on 9 o'clock in the forenoon on Monday. 12th of December. All those of that opinion say aye. On the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. And I remember this House will stand adjourned until Monday 12th, 9 o'clock.
So the conclusion to the table.
By that, the speaker is saying that the debate on the 2017 budget will begin on Monday at 9. He says 9 in the forenoon. If we would just make it simpler, it's 9 o'clock on Monday morning. And that will be the start of the debate, and of course that will go through all of the week. I did mention just when we started the broadcast that people would be interested in reliefs, and there was some measure of relief announced by the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance this morning. Tax registration amnesty for the period January to March 2017, which will facilitate the registration of taxpayers with the IRD, that's the Inland Revenue Department, without the imposition of the penalty for failure to register. A tax filing amnesty for annual stamp tax for the tax period 2013 to 2015 without the imposition of the filing penalty. The period of this filing amnesty will be from June to August to 2017. Further, the government says that it's heard the request from the business community for a relief on the rate of annual stamp tax. The government, the Prime Minister announced, will therefore reduce the tax from 0.75 to 0.7%. This reduction will take effect for the tax period of 2018. And he did indicate here that it's because figures for 2017 had already been sent out, communicated to the various businesses, so this will take effect in 2018. So actually there'll be no relief in 2017 as such. The reduction in the price of the 20-pound cylinder of LPG from $42 to $40 from January of 2017. Also, the reduction of the personal income tax rate, that will drop from 15% to 10%, and this will take effect in the new fiscal year, starting next year. And another relief measure announced earlier on by the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, the removal of all income tax on pension income, and this will take effect from January 2017. So that's a list of the relief measures announced by the Prime Minister earlier on this morning. Prime Minister, of course, holding the portfolio of Minister of Finance. Of special interest to policyholders of BECO and CLECO, which the Prime Minister says is a major concern to his government, and he's hoping that lots of this issue can be resolved as soon as possible. The matter with CLECO is in court in Barbados, and BECO could get some payment next year. All right. Roll Titus is on the floor of the Trade Center. Roll, you can come in now.
Well, for me, I am really happy and exciting to be here and hearing some certain things that went on here this morning. For me, I think that there is hope. For me, as a construction worker and a small farmer, I am really excited.
A long list of projects coming on stream in the new year. I suppose you would have been impressed with that as a construction person.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm very happy, and I just hope that everything materializes as the Prime Minister says. He's just a estimate of what he expects to spend on the future. So I just hope that everything works out for Grenada and a whole.
Finally, your quick comments on the relief towards the end, on announcing some relief, tax relief, and that sort of thing.
Well, for me, I am very happy with what I heard, that especially the workers, they deserve all the monies, because they all sacrifice so much for the country, and now they're reaping the benefit. Is very grateful.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good one.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
All right, a quick comment there from Brian Felix, and now we are waiting on another interview, which should be coming up any moment now. But of course, the Prime Minister towards the end there, bringing the Parliament alive with a sweeping relief measures, which would come into effect in January in terms of a reduction in income tax, in terms of paying less for a 20-pound cylinder of gas, and all of the tax relief measures announced there. And of course, hearing that, folks would obviously want to speculate as to election and all that. But for now, the place is alive here, the Trade Center. There's a buzz, there's an excitement. A 2-hour presentation, just over 2 hours by the Prime Minister. So basically, and this year was obviously a budget with a difference. A budget with a difference in terms of how it was presented. A lot of pictures. Here with us, Roel Edwards now joining us. The president of the chamber is here with us. Your impression, Roel?
Very good budget. Of course, the Prime Minister continues to be a very strong orator. He's able to present a budget with great eloquence and very clear, so that the man on the street, the commoner that we would want to call him, can understand. Somebody in the farming village can understand what he's saying. The business executive can also understand. A couple key things, I think, from the budget from the private sector that stood out was the recognition of the role of the social partners and the homegrown monitoring committee that has been set up to monitor how the structural adjustment program has been going. So some of the things that was presented wasn't a surprise to us. We're quite pleased with the reduction in the debts and the savings that will be accumulated of close to over 839 million that the country is going to benefit from. The relief to the private sector, specifically that reduction in stamp tax, we have been lobbying. I have been behind the scenes. We've been working collectively with the government to get a reduction. We have received a reduction, albeit small, but more so I think the commitment for a further review into 2017, into 2018, for further reduction once the program continues to do well, I think is good news. The whole aspect of expansion of the airport to ensure that cargo can continue to go out, both agricultural produce and fish, was also quite good. The investment in sports and in our youth, but more so I think the capital projects investment. We've been happy to see the progress that the CBI program has been making, because much of the approved projects is entirely within the private sector. So we're happy with that. It was a very good budget. We're really proud of what was presented.
You think there's a lot there for the small man? I see reduction in the 20-pound cylinder. I see reduction in the tax
Yes.
Quite a lot, a heavy relief package towards the end.
Yes, of course, a couple areas. Within the agricultural sector, we've seen that the farmers are going to benefit from a payout from government for the weather. Yes. The average household with a reduction of the 20-pound cylinders, of course, that is good. We mean the employers within the private sector, we're happy that people can benefit from that. The small business, though, the small business fund through the Grenada Development Bank, that has been making loans available to the small man on the street, yes, who is not going to go to a commercial bank. We think that has been very good, so those reliefs are noted. An important area, though, is the investment in the Produce Chem Lab, yes, where they are going to be accredited to provide support in the area of pests and diseases, in the area of research and development. If we are able to manage our pests and diseases, I can assure you that our agricultural sector is going to do way better. Who benefits from our agriculture is the small man within the community, within the villages, our small farmers, our small agro-processors. So we're quite excited about this budget in 2017, because we're seeing that the small man is able to benefit, but also people who want to go into business have an opportunity now to go into business and to make money and to improve their livelihoods. Cooperate Grenada.
Thank you very much, Roel Edwards.
You're most welcome.
As always, Roel Edwards, President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Now we have another person to interview. Hello, what's your name?
My name is Roma.
Roma.
Roma Watts, yes.
Roma Watts. Well, you're here, you saw the presentation of the budget. What are your thoughts?
Well, overall, I think it's a very good budget. I think the plans for the future look really green, and the government has done a great lot. And if they continue the path that they are trotting, and I think Grenada would be a better place to live and to go forward.
Okay. You heard a lot of relief there for the corporate Grenada in terms of the reduction of the tax, relief for the person in terms of cylinder, gas cylinder less and cheap and so on. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a great deal. I think it's a very good deal, and I think the people will benefit from it. And, I think the government is doing a great job.
Do you think it was a good effort?
It was a good effort on the part of the government.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.
And a good weekend to you. All right, so here we are now continuing to interview persons. Who is next? Caroline Noel is next. He's covered up here. We go live with him. Here we are live on national television. Your thoughts on the budget?
Well, it's a wonderful budget. It shows that the austerity program has succeeded. And based on its success, we now see there are benefits of the program in terms of wage increases and tax releases and stuff like that. So it shows you the sacrifice that we went through for the 3 years has been paying off.
So the message here that comes through is that basically the Prime Minister / the government is saying, well, everyone has sacrificed, so now enjoy a bit of the sacrifice.
That's it. As a matter of fact, he said that Santa Claus is coming.
I thought he was very, witty and humorous towards the end there, in his normal Pekong style.
But he was also spiritual also.
Yes, yes.
He made several quotes from the Bible which complemented the humorous side. So it was well put together.
So there's a bit of humor, there's a bit of the spiritual, and of course the seriousness in terms of the information. Quick comment on what's in it for the corporate Grenada and for the ordinary man, because we see a nice relief package rolled out towards the end.
Yeah. It's now based on the projects that have started and that are in the pipeline, we would see a lot of growth taking place in the economy, which should translate into job creation. So I think the average person would be benefiting from job creating. And a lot of the social programs too, we have seen that there will be several benefits. In the pension, for example, the pensioners, the wage increments and stuff like that. So I think it's a very comprehensive and holistic budget.
And of course he announcing that he determined, he's hell-bent on solving that pension issue.
Yeah, he is. He said within the next year or so, we should see some serious results in that.
Thank you very much, Carlin.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great stuff. That's man here, Carlin Noel, chatting with us as we continue to interview people here on Budget 2017. Prime Minister at his absolute best this morning, riding on this 2-hour presentation. Very serious, hammering out some serious updates on the progress, on the gains that Grenada would have made from an economic standpoint. And then, of course, touching on the relief and the tax reductions. And so on, and targeting as they say, the small man, targeting corporate Grenada, as we heard from the president of the Chamber of Industry and commenting on that. So quite interesting presentation. It was long, over 2 hours, but it held your attention because the pictures were there. When he made reference to all the projects, when he made reference to all the programs, we saw the pictures coming up on screen. And of course, before that, one of the important aspects was the presentation, the video, audio presentation, capturing and highlighting and promoting the projects of the administration, leading right into the Prime Minister's presentation. So folks were not really bored at all. I can tell you, there was quite a lot to look and listen to. And indeed, everybody's down here now mingling and talking. A lot of the public officers will be smiling because of they would be from January taking home more money because of the reduction in the income tax and also because of the increment that will be taking place. And of course, the Prime Minister also talked about a one-off payment to public officers, a one-off payment to public officers next year. I think it's like around independence he mentioned. So what a budget it has been. Everybody is talking. Everybody is talking here. No. Another person interview, could you just identify yourself for the camera?
I'm Carlton Frederick.
Carlton Frederick, live on national television. There's a whole buzz happening inside the Trade Center now, and folks are just like, there's just a mingling conversation. What a budget it has been. Your thoughts?
No, I think it was an excellent budget, not only just the content of it, but the presentation. Yes. I think it's one of the best I've heard in terms of the presentation, how the Prime Minister put it forward, but also with the content. I think there's a lot of it, every pieces that everybody loved about the budget. You know, to their benefit and to the whole benefit of the development of the country. It was real good.
Touch everybody.
He did, and he did. In my opinion, he did. And I don't know if there's much about negative rebuttal.
Okay.
Because in all the areas on taxes, a lot of us are happy that they have, lowered the taxes and they would continue to do so.
Public servants.
Again, the public servants and, and the projects. The projects spoke for itself. in all the areas. He outlined only 19 of them. But between you and I think there is a tripling of that 19. Because there's a lot of small projects that was not even mentioned. They mentioned the mega ones, and that is great. So, to me, that was it. As the Prime Minister said, go tell it on the mountain, and I will be going and tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. It was a really good budget, and I think the people will be happy for it.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for your
My
talk.
pleasure all. My pleasure all.
Thank you, thank you. All right, great stuff here. Well, what a day it has been as we continue to get some interviews. Minister Steele is here. We're going to pull him close for a quick chat. Everybody's talking about this budget, Minister Steele. Your quick comments.
I think this budget can be expressed as a Christmas budget, but a serious budget in terms of continuing the nation building, continuing on the successes, making sure that we recognize that the successes are based on sacrifices that have been made by all, and making sure that we find a way through the consultation of the social partnership to give back to those who have made the sacrifices. It focuses on health as well, in particular. It's a recognizing from the people of the urgency of healthcare. It's not just about putting more money in healthcare, but if you look through the budget specific to health, you will see that it's smarter spending of all the dollars to make sure that it affects positively the people of Grenada in 2017.
Okay. A lot of relief in it too, a lot for the public officers too, a lot for the corporate Grenada. We spoke to the chamber. He was very impressed with that relief in tax and all of that.
Yes, like I said, it's a recognition that the successes that we count today have been from the shared sacrifice. So we have to make sure, and we are doing so in this budget, that we understand where these successes have come from, who they have come from, and who needs to benefit. The people of Grenada, corporate sector, private sector, public sector, but most importantly, as many Grenadians as possible.
And of course, his determination, the government determination to deal with the pension issue.
Yes, the pension issue, I think, is essential. I think that is a wonderful give back that we have always recognized, and to be part of a government, to be in a position to do that is a proud moment as well.
Thank you, Minister Steele. A good weekend to you.
And to you. Merry Christmas to all.
Same to you, yes. Okay, so Byron Campbell has just joined us. I think we have to turn like this. I think he's wearing one of my shirts, you know. I think I have a shirt like that home, you know. Okay, I need to check to see if it's there still.
You didn't wear it today.
Okay, your thoughts on the budget?
Oh wow, overwhelming. Look, on the face of it, you know, when you hear a budget, you have not really studied it. Yeah. But what I like here is that I think there's a focus on the key issues, that of young people, youth unemployment, and how do we address it. To me, because we have such an accumulation, we have recognizing high youth unemployment, a focus on rural development, particularly with young people, and small business development. For me, this is what stood out. I think if this is approached, because we tend to have this imbalance in the economy, you know, more focus in the southern part. And what I picked up there is that young people, rural economy, and agriculture in particular is getting some focus, and I'm very, very, very pleased about that. That, for me, is the key to it, the young people and the unemployment, because they face a lot of difficulties in that initial stage of moving from school, from education to employment. And what I like there too is the amount of project in the tourism sector, because a lot of young people, because the tourism sector has the opportunity to employ such a large amount of young people in particular, I think for me, that stood out, and that is clearly an opportunity and a focus, and I like that.
At the top of the structural adjustment program, when it all started, the government called for shared sacrifice with the Conference of Churches and the social partners and so on. Do you see this budget coming towards the end of the SLP as an attempt to give back and shared sacrifice in terms of all those who would have participated?
I want to answer this question by saying the first thing I ask myself, is this an election budget? You know, I'm still toying with it. But clearly we see some give back. The fact that the income tax have moved now, have gone down. There's a move from 15 to 10. I think this is saying, hey, you know, we reach in the end. There is some relief. You know. Is this a trend that's going to continue? We don't know. But clearly, I agree. At the beginning of this structural adjustment program, there was a lot of difficulties. Clearly, the Prime Minister said, look, shared sacrifices. You know, we coming to the end of it, and we already seen some signs of relief. That's good. That's positive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure. Right.
Yes, that's Byron Campbell there talking with us. Well, we would have the Prime Minister. He should be coming in just a few minutes. Everybody is talking to him. And what a situation here. Everybody is quite excited. And I think are we going to him or? Actually, I think he's gonna come across here. All right, we're just gonna verify. He's gonna come here. Okay, he's gonna come here. So we're gonna wait for the Prime Minister to come here to have a quick chat with us. All right. All right. So in the meantime, we'll keep it live because this is live television. Now you've just witnessed the conclusion of 2017 budget presentation by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell. It was a 2-hour presentation, just over 2 hours. And what an interesting presentation it has been. It hasn't been a boring one. And all the general consensus is it has been quite an exciting budget in terms of his presentation and the content of it. And by presentation, also the packaging of it, because we've seen here a lot of pictures. When he made reference to the different projects, the pictures came up on screen. And even before, there was a big presentation, audiovisual presentation, leading into the Prime Minister's presentation. So there was quite a lot. And the Trade Center was packed to capacity, and the Trade Center Annex was also packed to capacity. What we saw was that some screens went up in the Trade Center Annex so that folks who the overspill could be accommodated in the Trade Center Annex. So this is what happened here now at the Trade Center. And you know, coming towards the end, the Prime Minister, in his typical style, a bit humorous, a bit spiritual, and a bit of political peacock in there. You know he's going to do that. That is going to happen. So, and of course we heard him announcing to some major announcement in the sporting world. Asafa Powell, for the first time, he's announced that Asafa Powell, the sub-10 king of sprinting, is coming to Grenada for the Grenada Invitational. That has been confirmed and announced by the Prime Minister here this morning in the budget. And of course, we all look forward to that at the Kirani James Stadium. And I know there are lots of athletes. Chris Brown is a major part of this, putting it together for the local organizing committee. And there's going to be lots of announcements later on, even towards the end of this year. Stand by. You should be hearing some more announcements of some of the big names that would be coming to Grenada for the Grenada Invitational. So we're here now waiting for the Prime Minister to come to give us some thoughts on this budget. We've heard from the Chamber very happy in terms of the tax measures. The public servants will be happy in terms of what they would have been getting. They would be getting increments. Next year there's a big one-off payment for them. Also, there's a tax relief in terms of the income tax. They'll be excited about that. So quite a lot in store here. And of course, everybody's going to be speculating, when is election? This is an election budget, and that sort of discussion would be taking place. So of course, we know that for sure. So a lot of people are leaving here now. We're heading into a weekend. The Prime Minister also announcing that there's going to be double payments happening next Friday. Of course, we know Friday we're leading into the Christmas season, and normally government pays at a particular time because Christmas is upon us. And quite a lot being announced here this morning. So this is the situation here. We're at the Trade Center, and we're getting ready. The Prime Minister is now moving away from the media, getting ready to come to us. We're going to just tap his thoughts briefly, because he would have had a long day so far in terms of talking. I don't know. I don't think he was in the gym this morning. I know he normally gets into the gym. Well, he may have been, because I was a bit late. So I may have missed him, but he normally goes in early, 4 o'clock, 4:30, hits the gym, hits the treadmill, hits the weights, leg press, abs, and all the different exercise before he gets, and he still comes to work at very early, 7 o'clock. All right, so here he is. I guess I'm still talking to a couple reporters who just wouldn't let him leave. And of course, one of the things we must mention is there has been a nice collaboration by some of the different sectors. Now the Prime Minister is saying, the other media was hogging him a bit, but good to have him here. Prime Minister, well, there seems to be a consensus. Everybody, this is quite an exciting budget.
Well, yes, the thing is, we are in exciting times, Raul. And there is that perception, as I had to debunk this a while ago, that this is some election budget. I reminded people we are still in a structural adjustment program. So we can't be just thinking of election. We have to think of our responsibility to protect our gains. And therefore, whatever we do must also be sanctioned by the agreement that we have signed. And therefore, we did point out to people that we ask them for sacrifice. And we say, as the gains come, you have to benefit. Right. So we are seeing the gains, and therefore, we have, in fact, provided the data to the IMF and others. This is what we intend to do. Check the numbers and see if it goes out of our bounds. And of course, they recognize that we have been performing well, reasonably so, and the workers have to be given tremendous accolades for having supported us in this difficult process.
Quite a lot for public officers there.
They are getting a lot. They are getting a lot. And that's why we make the point to them. They have a responsibility to produce more. I'm talking about some of those who are not producing, because we have some excellent public officers who are going really beyond the call of duty. We have some young officers in major departments, even in the Prime Minister's ministry. We're seeing that. The work of the Cabinet Secretary, the head of Department of Department of Public Administration, they're working extremely hard.
Quick comments on the project. A lot of projects announced here, or some ongoing.
Private sector projects, these are the ones that get to me the most, because private sector projects is a clear indication of the atmosphere, the investment climate atmosphere in the country, and the confidence in what is taking place in the country. If you don't have confidence, you don't get investment. So when some people are boasting about doing business ranking and how they had a better doing business ranking, you had a better doing business ranking and you had no jobs, you had no investment, which means there were no confidence. Okay. I mean, while doing business ranking is a positive, and I would want to improve on it, and in fact I take responsibility, we have to take responsibility, we're not improving it. But the fact is, the key factor is investment. And this is an area we've been highly successful. Okay. So I would like to have both business ranking increases and also the investment. Right. But if I have to take one, if I have to choose between a high business ranking and no investment, as opposed to a lower business ranking and a lot of investment, well, I have no difficulty in choosing.
Just before you go, a package of measures announced towards the end. I guess you're saying that because at the top of the structural adjustment program, the call for shared sacrifice, everybody to be on board. So it's like a gift back to all those who.
No, we're saying as the program improves and gets more success, we share it. This is not about us. Yeah. As I made the point, look at who's working. My view, the hardest set of workers in this country. I mean, we have to say among those hard workers are the parliamentarians, and their salaries are sometimes lower than many public officers whom they are in charge of. And they have got no increase. Because if they attempt to take one increase, you heard a loud cry in the public. And I don't believe it's fair. Okay. But my point is, I think we are doing what we have to do. We're sharing the sacrifices. We're sharing the benefits. And let's move forward.
Well, I know it's been a long day for you.
That's right.
2-hour presentation, but not a boring presentation. Lots of pictures, lots of different things in it. Quite interesting. Well, no boring moment today.
I have to blame Keisha and them. I tell them I didn't want a 2-hour presentation. They give me more than 2 hours, right? More than 2 hours.
But not a boring one.
No,
there was a lot to see and hear.
I'm going home and rest. Have something to eat and rest.
Have a good one. Thank you very much. Well, the Prime Minister, some humor there. Of course, he was spiritual. He was a bit of everything here this morning. What a day it was. So it's time for us to wrap it up now. As we wrap it up, this has been the 2017 budget presentation by Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dr. Keith Mitchell, here in Parliament, well, the Trade Centre, the temporary home of Parliament, even just outside the outskirts of St. George's, where construction is underway on a new home, a new Parliament that's taking place as we speak now. So let's wrap it up now. We've heard all of the tax measures, the relief package announced by the Prime Minister, a lot of the projects ongoing and coming on stream. Quite a lot he announced here today. And of course, as he said, it's not necessarily an election budget, but he made a point that it's shared sacrifice. So as the sacrifice come on, the workers and the people of Grenada will benefit, right? So that's just about it. We look forward to the debate and the future discussion on the budget presentation, and we look forward to a happy Christmas for one and all, and a successful 2017 for one and all. Let's say thank you very much to the team at the Government Information Service here, all who work behind the scenes, the technical guys and everybody else who played their role, and also the participation media radio stations and TV stations who came on board to bring this broadcast live to you in your homes or wherever you are in the diaspora. We can't forget our friends and family in the diaspora. This has been Budget 2017.